I sat in my car outside the building I helped grow for 6 years, staring at glass doors that once felt like home. This was day 3 of my suspension. I built our B2B sales division from nothing, turned it into the backbone of my father's company. He always expected me to be grateful, to fall in line. A coworker named Jessica accused me of something I never did, and my father demanded I apologize to keep the peace. I refused, not because I am stubborn, but because I value truth over comfort. The building looked the same, but everything had changed. Today I was going back inside, but not to say sorry. Before we go further, I want to know where you are watching from. Drop your city in the comments below. If this story resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe, because what happened next changed everything about my family, my career, and who I thought I could trust. Let us get into it. I graduated from business school 8 years ago with decent grades and bigger dreams. My father, Richard, owned a mid-sized manufacturing company that supplied industrial parts to construction firms across the Midwest. He offered me an entry-level position, and I took it without hesitation. I was eager to prove myself, determined to show I could succeed without riding on his name. I started in the warehouse, learning inventory systems and logistics. I worked every department over 2 years, sometimes taking shifts nobody wanted just to understand how the whole operation functioned. People respected that. They saw I was not there to play boss's son. I was there to learn. 2 years in, I pitched an idea to my father. Our company made great products, but we had no dedicated B2B sales division. We relied on distributors and old relationships. I told him we were leaving money on the table. We could sell directly to larger construction companies, build partnerships, increase margins. He was skeptical. Gave me a tiny budget and 6 months to prove the concept. I hired 5 people. We worked out of a converted storage room with folding tables and used computers. I cold-called companies during the day and built pitch decks at night. We landed our first contract 4 months in a regional construction firm that became a $200,000 annual client. By year 2, we had 15 clients. By year 4, my division generated 30% of total company revenue and employed 23 people. My father was proud, I think. He never said it directly. His praise came in comments like, "You are doing what is expected," or "This is what family does." I loved the work. I loved my team. I felt like I finally earned his respect, even if he could not quite say it out loud. Then 6 months ago, everything started shifting. My father hired Jessica as vice president of operations. She came from a competitor with an impressive resume, credentials from a big-name business school, and a confident way of speaking that filled rooms. I wanted to give her a fair chance. The first red flag appeared in a strategy meeting 2 weeks after she started. She presented a process improvement for our supply chain workflow. I recognized it immediately because my logistics manager, Marcus, had developed it 3 months earlier. Jessica presented it like her own idea, complete with slides that looked suspiciously similar to Marcus's original proposal. I let it slide. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. The second incident was harder to ignore. Jessica started interrupting my client presentations. She would jump in mid-sentence to correct me with information that was either outdated or flat wrong. In one meeting with a potential client worth $500,000 annually, she contradicted my pricing structure in front of everyone. The client looked confused. I had to politely clarify after the meeting, and we almost lost the deal. I brought my concerns to my father privately. Sat in his office, explained the pattern I was seeing. He dismissed it immediately. Jessica has 20 years of experience. She has insights you need to learn from. Be open to feedback, son. That stung, but I pushed it down. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was being territorial. Jessica grew bolder. She started emailing my clients directly, cutting me out of conversations I had been managing for years. She would schedule calls without telling me, then send summary emails to my father, making it look like she was handling relationships I had built. My team noticed. Morale started dropping. Marcus pulled me aside one afternoon and said quietly, "She is positioning to take over your division. I have seen this before." I did not want to believe it. I wanted to think the best of people, but the evidence kept piling up. 3 weeks ago, everything came to a head. We had a major presentation scheduled with a potential client, a national construction firm looking to consolidate suppliers. The contract was worth $2 million over 3 years. I had been preparing for weeks, coordinating with engineering and production to customize our proposal. The morning of the meeting, Jessica pulled me aside in the hallway. Her face was serious, almost concerned. She said there had been a complaint about my sales tactics. One of our existing clients allegedly felt pressured, said I was too aggressive in my approach. She did not give specifics, just vague mentions of multiple people raising concerns. I was shocked. I asked for details, for names. She said she was still gathering information but wanted to give me a heads up. The meeting happened that afternoon. It went perfectly. The client loved our proposal, asked detailed technical questions that I answered confidently. They signed a letter of intent right there pending final contract review. The procurement director, a woman named Sarah, even sent a follow-up email that evening thanking me for our professionalism and thorough preparation. The next morning, Jessica sent an email to my father and the entire board of directors. The subject line was formal complaint harassment allegation. She claimed I had harassed Sarah during our interactions, made inappropriate comments about her appearance, created an uncomfortable environment. She wrote that she had tried to address it privately with me, but I had been defensive and dismissive. I sat at my desk reading that email 3 times, my hands shaking. This never happened. Not even close. Every interaction with Sarah had been professional. We communicated primarily through group emails and conference calls, all documented. I recorded calls as company policy allowed in our state for quality assurance. I had proof this was false. That afternoon, my father called me into his office. Jessica was already there, sitting in one of the leather chairs across from his desk. The company lawyer, David, sat beside her with a yellow legal pad. My father's face was cold, distant, in a way I had never seen directed at me before. "These are serious allegations," he said without preamble. "No, how are you, or let us talk about this." Just immediate judgment in his tone. I tried to explain. I offered to pull up emails, play call recordings, show him the professional nature of every interaction. He cut me off with a raised hand. "Jessica has witness statements," he said. "Multiple employees confirming a pattern of behavior." I asked to see the statements. He said that was not possible during an active investigation. I felt the ground shifting under me. This was not a conversation. It was a sentencing. Jessica sat there perfectly still with the slightest hint of a smirk at the corner of her mouth. She said nothing, just watched me try to defend myself. David, the lawyer, suggested immediate administrative leave pending a full investigation. "Standard protocol for harassment allegations," he explained in his careful legal tone. I argued this was absurd. I had documented proof of my innocence. Everything was recorded, time-stamped witnesses on every call. My father leaned back in his chair. "If you have nothing to hide, you will cooperate with the process." I stared at him, this man who taught me to ride a bike and throw a baseball, who put me through college. "You are taking her word over mine. I am taking the word of multiple witnesses over your defensiveness," he said. "This is not personal. This is business." But it was personal. Deeply personal. My own father looked at me like I was a liability instead of his son. He had already decided Jessica was telling the truth before hearing my side. I was suspended immediately with pay pending investigation. Security escorted me out of the building like I had committed a crime. My team watched from the sales floor, confusion and concern on their faces. I could not explain what was happening. I barely understood it myself. The first week of suspension, I compiled everything. Every email exchange with Sarah and her company. Every call recording. Phone logs, meeting notes, calendar invites. I had a paper trail proving every interaction was professional and appropriate. Sarah herself had sent unsolicited emails praising my responsiveness and expertise. I submitted everything to David in a 60-page document with exhibits. I heard nothing for 5 days. When David finally called, his voice was strange. "The evidence is complicated," he said. "It clearly shows I did nothing wrong," I replied. He hesitated. "Jessica's witnesses are credible employees with no reason to lie. I asked to interview these witnesses myself to understand what they thought they saw." He denied the request. "It would compromise the investigation's integrity," he said. The second week, my father called me to his house. Not the office, his home where I grew up. We sat in his study surrounded by family photos and his college football trophies. He told me the investigation was complete. "There is conflicting evidence," he said carefully. "You mean my proof versus lies," I said. His face flushed red. "You will not call your coworkers liars." He explained that 3 employees provided statements claiming they heard me make inappropriate comments about female clients. They described specific incidents, dates, locations. I recognized the names immediately. All three had been hired by Jessica in the past 4 months. All came from her previous company. All were her personal friends. I showed him this connection, pulled out a list I had made showing their hire dates, their LinkedIn connections to Jessica, their previous employment. He waved it away as coincidence, circumstantial at best. Then he gave me the ultimatum that broke something fundamental between us. "Here is how this ends," he said, standing behind his desk like he was chairing a board meeting instead of talking to his son. "You apologize to Jessica and to Sarah. You take a 3-day sensitivity training course. You come back to work and we move forward. This gets buried and everyone keeps their job." I looked at him for a long moment. "I will not apologize for something I did not do." "Then you are choosing your pride over this family." "I am choosing truth," I said quietly. He stood up, his face dark red now. "You have 48 hours. Apologize, or the suspension becomes permanent. Those are your options." I left his house that night feeling something crack inside my chest. This was not about finding truth. This was about control, about protecting the company's image. Jessica had threatened a lawsuit if the situation was not handled properly. My father chose protecting his business over protecting his son. He chose believing a woman he had known 6 months over the son he had raised for 32 years. I spent that night reviewing my options. I could apologize, keep my job, keep the peace, and lose every ounce of self-respect I had built. I could fight this through a lawsuit, drag my family through public litigation, potentially destroy the company my father built over 4 decades. Or I could walk away with my integrity intact. The choice became clear around 3 in the morning. I spent the next 48 hours planning carefully. I realized I had leverage my father had not considered. The B2B sales division was my creation. I built every client relationship personally. The contracts belonged to the company legally, but the trust was personal. Clients worked with our company because they trusted me. I knew this because they told me so regularly. I also had documentation of everything. Not just my innocence regarding the false accusation, but Jessica's entire pattern of behavior. I had emails showing her taking credit for other people's work. I had messages where she lied to clients about product capabilities. I had evidence she was violating her non-compete agreement from her previous employer by recruiting their clients to our company using insider knowledge. I called a former colleague named Angela who had left our company 2 years earlier for a competitor. She was now their VP of sales. I explained my situation honestly, left nothing out. She listened without interrupting. "How soon can you start?" she asked when I finished. She offered me a senior director position, 20% higher salary, full benefits, and equity options. I would be building their new enterprise division, essentially doing what I did for my father, but with better support and resources. I negotiated a start date 2 weeks out and accepted. Then I began documenting my resignation carefully. I wrote a detailed resignation letter 3 pages long. It was professional and factual with no emotional language.